Watching markets at noon on ET. Now markets seeing some slim gains as we speak today in trade. We've come off from the high point of the day. Okay, well, let's move on now and continue on more news around the equity markets and bring you some buzzing stocks as well. One such stock is JK Paper, strong performance in the fourth quarter. We, of course, will understand the impact of the second wave on demand as well as the anti-dumping duty, which is now under sunset review. Mr. A.S. Mehta, the president and director of JK Paper, joins us now on the show. Thank you so much, Mr. Mehta, for joining in. So, a good performance in Q4. Yes, of course, we had the low base. But what are the other factors as well that contributed to the strong growth?
See, the Q4, when you talk, actually, there are 2-3 factors. The first and foremost is the top line, because the volume growth is there, and that volume growth has given additional contribution and additional EBITDA. So one is the volume growth. The second is our cost reduction drive, which was continuing in the pandemic year. It continued. So in fact, there are cost reductions. Despite the commodity prices being higher, our still material cost is managed and it is lower. One is the raw material cost is lower because we are procuring from the proximity and the nearby area. So the logistics cost is lower. Our other costs are also lower. And when the production volume is good, our operating efficiencies were better. So in fact, our energy cost is lower. Our other productivity is higher, so the other costs are lower. So the cost is also lower. Then when you go to the finance cost, it is much lower compared to the last year. One is that because our rating was there and we had the liquidity, so our working capital was managed very well, and our weighted average cost of capital has also come down. So the finance cost is also much lower compared to the last year. If you see last year, it was something around 30 crore, and this time it is just 20 crore in the quarter. So the finance cost has also come down. So these are 4-5 factors which have favored for the Q3.
Okay. Excuse me. Mr. Mehta, talk to us about what we are seeing currently then, because, we have the second wave, the localized lockdowns. Do you feel that we seem to be back to where we started?
See, yes, you are right. The second wave, and since the countrywide, even if there is no national lockdown, but the state-sponsored and the state-enforced lockdowns are there in most of the states. But some of the segments are still, doing. They are not doing at the level of the optimum demand. But still, I would say that this Q1 is much better than the Q1 we saw last year when there was a national lockdown. So the packaging board is doing all right. The copier, maybe 30% market is still operating because the government offices are working. Yes, the school colleges are shut, but the home consumption has also gone up because the people are working from home. And so I would say the copier would be close to 30%. And the other writing printing, yes, because that is more of an education area. So there also the demand is lower. And coated paper is doing very well. And also, again, when the domestic market is down, the other markets globally are not that much down as we are down in India. So again, we have reoriented our focus on the export market. So we will be doing more export. So in all, I would say that the Q1 is going to be impacted. But the last year Q1 was very bad.
How is the demand for packaging products at challenge at this point of time, especially on the supply front?
As far as we are concerned, I would say we have not faced any challenges on the supply side on the packaging board area. In fact, we are in the virgin packaging board, and more or less we are integrated, except some variety of pulp we had to import, but otherwise so we don't face that challenge. And the packaging board is doing very well. In fact, the pharma, FMCG, these sectors are doing very well. So the demand in those sectors are good for us, and so that's not an issue as far as we are concerned.
See, there is a rise in the input cost this quarter. Of course, it was managed, but will you be looking at a price hike? Will there be more price hike in the near term? How will you maintain the margins?
See, when you talk about the cost part, I would say that yes, some commodity prices have gone up, and so there will be some impact, but that impact has already come in the Q1, Q4. So I don't think that there will be any major otherwise the cost increase. As far as we are concerned, the raw material is the wood, and we are integrated players. So we are not impacted too much on the market volatility of the pulp prices globally. So that way, I would say that we are insulated. As far as the prices are concerned of the product, yes, when the market is down, when the demand is lower, so I mean, it is bound to happen that there will be a lower prices. So the prices are likely to be lower in this quarter, and certainly lower demand, lower prices. But at the same time, I mean, you will also have the other advantages. I mean, the cost advantages and all other things. But yes, there will be a lower the margin, likely to be lower margin, predominantly driven because of the lower demand.
All right. Finally, Mr. Mehta, India has initiated a sunset review investigation on anti-dumping duty on uncoated copier paper that's imported from Indonesia and Singapore. How do you see this benefiting the company if and when it does go through, and when do you expect a decision on the same?
See, in fact, going back on this subject, in fact, this anti-dumping investigation was started sometime in 2016. And it took a lot of time, and then the duty was finally levied in 2018 November or December. I think for December 18 was precisely the date. And so it was for 3 years. So now the 3 years are likely to be over in, again, the 3rd of December 2021. So before that, the review it takes place. So we have filed an application, and so there will be now the process. We will put up our case. In fact, before the anti-dumping duty was levied, in fact, the Indonesian players, they were dumping the paper left, right, center in the country at much lower prices. And that impacted the profitability of the companies in the domestic market. In fact, some of the capacities were shut because of that reason. Because that time they were selling in the other market at $700+ a ton, whereas in India they were selling at $550 a ton. And because elsewhere they were not finding a good market, and India is a very neighbor market, so they were dumping. And so that is bound to be a government action, because we approached the ministries, we approached the anti-dumping, and they investigated, they found the merit in the case, and they levied the duty. Now, because at one point of time, in fact, the import was close to 20% of the total domestic demand. And when you see this kind of an import, because we have a FTA with the ASEAN countries, and Indonesia is a predominantly export-driven manufacturing. So they find as a very favorable thing to do this kind of a dumping in India. And we are hopeful that the government will listen to it. Otherwise, there will be a major issue with some of the companies. See, on the cost part, we can always compete. But when they dump, it's not the fair thing.